Have you ever watched a movie and wondered why they cast that woman or that guy? Well, here's our chance to give it a try. We're Repodcasting. Hello and welcome back to Repodcasting. I am your co-host, Lucia Julio.
And I'm Janet, calling it in from Toronto.
Hooray! And today we have a very special treat because we will be recasting The Hunger Games.
Whoa.
And so this was Janet's pick, and so if you don't mind, I'm curious why you chose this.
Well, this is another girl on the train scenario similar to that, in that I read The Hunger Games, loved the book so much, and then when I found out that it was being adapted into a big Hollywood blockbuster movie, I was both excited and scared because I really loved this series of books, as so many other people did. I'm not alone. And so there's always like that nervousness where you really love the source material and you're excited at the prospect of a movie, but so scared. And I know I'm always like such a Debbie Downer, but I feel like they got it wrong. And listen, I know that I'm alone here because, I mean, these movies made a ton of money and were so popular and like launched these careers for these people. But interestingly, I think a lot of people didn't really like the casting at first either, like just based on, you know, the reaction. I remember when they were first announcing the leads, there was a lot of sort of, you know, people like being angry and that sort of thing. So I don't think I was alone, but full disclosure, I am not a fan of the casting on these movies.
And even after watching the movies, like your position remained the same?
Absolutely. And, you know, it's interesting because the only one of these movies that I was able to get through was the first one.
Oh, you didn't see any of the others?
I watched about half of Catching Fire.
Oh, wow.
And I had to turn it off because I was like, I was so annoyed with what was going on. And then I didn't see because they pulled the whole
Harry Potter
thing on it, where they split it into two movies, which was a shameless cash grab.
Oh, I know. It was so annoying. Yeah, absolutely. I also read the books, I think shortly after they came out. It was in a book club. One of the people chose it as our next book, The Hunger Games. And I remember even like talking to my friend about it, and we were both kind of annoyed. We're like, oh, she's picking like Twilight type stuff. And then we read it, and everybody in the group loved it, and I devoured all 3 books immediately.
And, I feel you.
Yeah,
like I devoured these books. Like I remember I loved the first one. The second book was my favorite. I remember as soon as I finished reading Catching Fire the first time, I started rereading it.
Oh my gosh.
Like I literally, there was no downtime. Like I started rereading it. I loved that book.
That's awesome.
Mockingjay I liked too, but the second one was my favorite.
I think it was Catching Fire that I got through in 2 days, and I'm not a fast reader, so that is a feat for me.
Yeah, like I was a huge lover of these books,
cool.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, when I heard about the movies, I was excited, and when I heard who they were casting, I didn't know any of them, so I was just like, okay, whatever. And I went to see the movie as soon as it came out, and I personally really liked it. I thought everybody did a good job. Not everybody, but most people did a good job.
Yeah. And it's funny because when the movie came out, I didn't go and see it. Like, I think the first time that I watched this movie, I think, like, I just happened to see it on DVD. And it wasn't until well after it had come out.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
So, do we want to talk about box office?
Sure, sounds good.
So, yeah, this made a shit ton of money. So the budget for the movie was $78 million, which is pretty healthy, and then it went on to make $695 million worldwide.
Good God.
And it had an interesting little fact. It was the third largest opening of any movie in North America at that time when it came out.
In history?
Yeah, that's what it said.
Ooh, wow.
That's what I got in North America. Yeah. So it made a lot of money, and a lot of people obviously loved it.
Yeah. Today I read a couple of articles about it. The articles I read were like from 2010 or 2011 as the casting choices were being known, published, and there was a lot of backlash. And so it is interesting that even with that, it still did amazingly well, and all the other movies I think did really well too.
Well, because I mean, ultimately, people will go and see it if they really love the book. I mean, there's always that curiosity. You're going to go and watch it, right?
Yeah. I guess it's like Batman v Superman. Like, I heard there were people hate watching it and like going to the movie theater multiple times, giving all their money to the studio and hate watching it.
Those are people who have disposable income.
Clearly.
Like a lot of it. Yeah.
Man, oh man.
Do you want to do the synopsis? Or?
Yes. So The Hunger Games is about Katniss Everdeen, who voluntarily takes her younger sister's place in The Hunger Games, which is a televised competition in which 2 teenagers from each of the 12 districts of Panem are chosen at random to fight to the death.
Yes.
Yeah. It's the lottery for teenagers.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a great story.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a great story, but it's just I did not connect with these casting choices. Okay. Should I get started, or do you want to?
No, I think we should get started. Tell us why you did not connect with these casting choices.
Okay, so I'll start with Katniss, Jennifer Lawrence. I'm going to call her J-Law.
Okay.
During this pod.
Well, we're J-Lou.
Yeah, that's right.
You're J and I'm Lou.
Yeah. So she's going to be J-Law for everyone listening. So interestingly, when I was, doing some research on this, what I found interesting was what Suzanne Collins said. And really, what do I know? What do any of us know? I mean, Suzanne Collins, the person who created Katniss Everdeen, said that Jennifer Lawrence was the only one who truly captured the character I wrote in the book. Mm-hmm. That's how she felt. So, I mean, she obviously had Suzanne Collins's stamp of approval. Yeah. But the one thing that there are several things that I didn't like about her, but the one thing that I really didn't like about Jennifer Lawrence, I always felt that she looked too old for the role.
Oh, really?
And not that she was old. I think she was like 20 years old when they started filming. So she was only about 4 years older than the actual character, which is not a huge age difference. But to me, Jennifer Lawrence just has a very sophisticated, older look about her. Not to say that she looks old. Like, she doesn't look old and haggard.
Right.
So I always felt that she just seemed too sophisticated for the role.
I just find that so funny because I felt the exact opposite. I mean, I didn't think she looked too young for the role, but I did wonder, I looked up how old she was because while watching it, I was like, man, she has such a baby face. Like, I'm really curious how old she is.
No, I was never buying her. The other thing I didn't like was the fact that this was the kind of role that, because the book had such a huge following, that this could have been a huge launch pad for an actor. Like, they could have hired all unknowns.
Yeah.
And I think the movie still would have done well. Yeah. Now, I get that they wanted people who had some sort of name recognition, because obviously they needed money, right? It's always like that. You need money, you need the funding for a big budget, so you've got to attach certain people to certain roles. And Jennifer Lawrence, people knew her already, and she was already in the X-Men franchise as well. But that was the other thing. It's like she was already in a franchise. And I'm not saying that actors can't be in multiple franchises. Of course they can, right? But to me, it was like almost kind of lazy casting. And what I found really interesting was that there were a lot of female actors who auditioned for this role, because they auditioned a lot of bigger name actresses, who, in my opinion, would have been a lot better. Okay. The first person that I actually thought of for this role. They actually auditioned her.
Oh, no way.
And my second choice for the role, they auditioned her as well. So I thought that was really interesting. Before I even did any research, I was like, oh, they actually auditioned those actresses. So here's a list of actresses that they auditioned for the role. Haley Steinfeld, Abigail Breslin, Emma Roberts, Saoirse Ronan, Chloe Grace Moretz, Lindsay Fonseca, Emily Browning, Shailene Woodley, and Kaya Scodelario. So she was actually my first choice, and she's the person that I recast in the role. Her name is Kaya Scodelario. When I was reading the book, in my mind's eye, that was who I had cast in this role.
Okay.
And you probably don't know who she is because she still doesn't have like much name recognition. But I had seen her on this British show called Skins.
Oh, okay.
And she had played a character on there called Effie. And she was this tough ass bitch on that show. And for some reason, I remember when I was reading The Hunger Games, and I was already casting it in my head. Like, I was like, well, if they made this into a movie, I would totally cast Effie in this role. She would be so good. And she did audition. It's funny because I was reading about this. She did audition for the role, and she said that she was gutted when she didn't get it. Because she really wanted this role. And I was like, why didn't they cast her? I don't understand. Because I really feel like she would have been so good. And she's the same age as Jennifer Lawrence, but she looks younger. And she's also been she was in the last Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
Like the seventh one? There's been like a million of those movies.
Yeah, it was the last one. It was Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
I didn't see it, but she was in there. She actually had a lead role in that. And most recently, she was in the Maze Runner movies.
Okay.
She played Teresa. So for anyone who doesn't know who she is, that's where you can find her and you can see her work. But honestly, she was on Skins, and she was so good on Skins. So I was like, oh, that's too bad that she didn't get it. But my second choice was Saoirse Ronan. I could totally have seen Saoirse Ronan as Katniss.
Nice. Okay.
Couldn't you?
Not really.
Saoirse Ronan is such a badass. Like, did you see that movie Hannah?
No.
Oh, you got to see Hannah.
Really? It didn't really pique my interest.
That's going on your list.
Okay.
Yeah, Saoirse Ronan, I think she would have been a really good Katniss as well. Yeah, so those were sort of like my two. But, you know, the other thing I wanted to say, and we talked about this before, but the director of this movie, Gary Ross, he clearly had a heavy hand in casting. You know, I was reading an interview that he did with Entertainment Weekly when they first started casting the movie, and he clearly wanted Jennifer Lawrence. I got the sense that it was basically up to him, that he was calling the shots. He said that he really liked Jennifer Lawrence, like he met her, and he felt that she like personified the character because she was so strong and independent, and the way he went on and on about her, like I almost got the sense that he like totally had a crush on her.
Probably.
I don't know. That was the vibe that it was like a creepy man vibe.
Yeah.
Sorry if Gary Ross is listening to this. Please don't file a lawsuit against us. But he sounded like a creepy man. And Suzanne Collins, even though she definitely gave her stamp of approval and she said that, you know, Jennifer Lawrence was it, I got the sense that he really was kind of like calling the shots on the casting. I don't know, maybe that was just my interpretation of it. So that's who I picked for Katniss.
Awesome.
And then Peeta, oh my god.
What?
Listen, no, Josh Hutcherson, you know, I'm sure he's a lovely person, and I've seen him in other things, and, you know, it's not that he's a bad actor, but, like, I laughed my ass off when I read that they were casting him as Peeta.
But did you laugh your ass off when you watched the movie? I think he was great.
No, I did not like him as Peeta. I was not buying him as Peeta. To me, he's a romantic lead, like even in the book, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you we're supposed to believe that they're in love and all this other stuff. And one look at Josh Hutcherson, it's like, this guy's not a romantic lead. Like, I wasn't buying it. And I was actually, you know what? I will say this. When I heard that he was cast as PETA, I was so disappointed because, again, when I was reading the book in my mind's eye, like, I was not picturing Josh Hutcherson.
So
at all.
you knew him as well before you saw this movie. When they announced his name, you already knew who that was.
Yeah, I knew who he was, and you know what? It's weird because even when you see photographs of the three leads together, he looks like a little kid next to Jennifer Lawrence.
Okay, but so your problem was that Jennifer Lawrence looks too old, and now the problem is that he looks too young?
Next to her, he did.
Aww.
To me, he did. He looks like a little kid, and not just because he's shorter than her. And maybe that had something to do with it as well. When people are casting these movies, like, physicality is huge.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
But he's 16. The character is 16. You think he looked younger than that?
Yeah, like, to me, Josh Hutcherson looks like he's 12.
You're crazy.
No.
He was so good. He was adorable. I totally bought him as romantic lead, and I think he killed the role. And I think you're mean.
The word that you just used for him was adorable.
Yeah. PETA is not sexy. Gail is the sexy one. Reading the books.
Well, yes, Gail is supposed to be, like, sexy or whatever, even though, I don't know, I was very ambivalent towards Gail, but...
I was too, but I certainly never pictured PETA as, like, some buff, hot guy. He's not supposed to be.
No, I agree, neither did I, but you also get the sense that he's, like, a really good-looking guy. I don't know. I wasn't buying, what's-his-face, Josh Hutcherson as PETA. Like, no. To me, he looked too young next to J-Law, so physically I wasn't buying it. And I don't know, like, in the book when I was reading it, PETA comes across as, like, he's sensitive, but he's also, like, really intuitive, really smart, and, like, it's almost like there's more to him than meets the eye.
Definitely.
Because he definitely ends up, like, being able to play the game better, in a sense, than Katniss.
Yeah, he's seeing many steps ahead that she's not.
Yeah, like, it's almost like he sees the big picture, and he's a lot better at playing to the crowds and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And to me, like, Josh Hutcherson, he didn't capture, like, the vibe that I thought he should have had. So, anyway, my recast, I chose Emery Cohen, and I don't know if you know who he is.
I don't. Where do you pick these people from?
I know. Well, like, Emery Cohen, he's actually starting to be more popular now. So he was in The Place Beyond the Pines.
Oh, who was he in that?
Movie. He plays Bradley Cooper's son.
Okay.
He also was in that movie Brooklyn with Saoirse Ronan. He plays her boyfriend. And most recently, he was on The OA, which is on Netflix. And he's got a lead role. He plays Homer on there. So the reason that I picked him was, I don't know, I just could have really seen him as PETA. I think he looks young, like he definitely has a baby face. Yeah. But not so young. Like I said, for me, one of my big hang-ups with Josh Hutcherson was he looked too young next to Jennifer Lawrence. Like, almost like her baby brother. Not like the dude that I could potentially, like, see her making out with. Like, it's gross. The idea of them even making out, it's like, oh, she's making out with her little brother.
Oh my God.
No. So, yeah, Emery Cohen, like, while he still has that baby face and he looks young, like, he looks age appropriate for the role. He also is really good at playing, like, that sort of sensitive vulnerability, but he kind of, especially in The Place Beyond the Pines, he's kind of a punk ass in that movie. So I think he could have, like, really captured PETA's essence where, like, yeah, he's sensitive and he's vulnerable, but he could also play that sort of strong, self-possessed part of the character as
Yeah.
well.
So that's funny because, like, of everything you just mentioned, the only one I've seen is The Place Beyond the Pines, and he is a punk ass in that, and his character is so utterly despicable to me in that. I cannot even begin to imagine an ounce of sensitivity in him because I haven't seen him in anything else.
So that's why you need to watch him in Brooklyn. I'm
Yeah.
adding Brooklyn to your movie list.
Okay.
It is an excellent movie, and he is so good. His performance, he plays like a really nice, sensitive sort of. Yeah, you'll see
Okay.
when
Good.
you watch it, and you'll see that he can play like, yeah, he can play a punk ass, but he also has the ability to like go there and be
Okay.
really sensitive. And again, like I always try to keep in mind how the chemistry, I think he
Right.
would have had really nice chemistry with Kaya Scodelario, and they would have looked good together, I think. Yeah, so then in the role of Gale, it was Liam Hemsworth. You know, Liam Hemsworth is fine. Like, I'm not going to sit here and, like, shit talk Liam Hemsworth because I don't have any problem with him. He was fine in the role.
Mhm.
Again, like, I was really ambivalent about Gale's character in the first place.
Me too.
And
Yeah.
I'm ambivalent about Liam Hemsworth. You know what I mean? Physically, yeah, he totally fits the role.
Yeah.
Because you get the sense that Gale is, like, really rugged and kind of like a hunk, right?
Yeah.
Like, so with Liam Hemsworth, like, yeah, he's a hunk, right? Everyone thinks the Hemsworths are
Yeah.
are hunks,
Sure.
right? I don't know.
Sure.
So my problem with Liam Hemsworth was like I didn't feel that he meshed with the cast. I don't know. I didn't get that sense of chemistry with him and Jennifer Lawrence, which is weird because apparently, here's some like gossip tidbit, which could be true or not. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but apparently him and Jennifer Lawrence totally hooked up while they were filming this movie
I
in
hadn't
real
heard
life.
that. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, apparently they did.
Oh, but that's what they say is if people when they have no chemistry on screen, it's because they're having chemistry off screen.
Really?
I've heard that before, yeah. Oh, because
Oh.
I started hearing that around Mr. and Mrs. Smith time because that's when Brad Pitt was still with Jennifer Aniston. Or was he already with Angelina Jolie? Or was that the movie that broke them up?
Jennifer Aniston.
Okay, yeah. And everybody was saying that there is no chemistry in the movie between them, and it's because they were actually sleeping together in real life.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I've never heard that, but we'll go with that. To me, I didn't see the chemistry.
Me neither.
So that was kind of the problem that I had with him in this role, because I was kind of like, I don't believe that they even like each other.
Yeah.
In the book, like, they have a strong connection.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Gail's her BFF,
Yeah.
right? Like, they've grown up together, and so I didn't really feel that on screen between him and J-Law. You're going to be like, who? When I tell you my pick, because, again, it's like a totally unknown dude that, like, nobody's going to know, probably.
Oh, boy.
But my pick was Joe Dempsey. Let me explain who Joe Dempsey is.
Please.
Okay, so Joe Dempsey, a lot of people will know him, people who watch Game of Thrones.
Oh.
I know you don't.
Right.
But you're like one of the 5 people who does.
Yeah, I know.
So Joe Dempsey is on Game of Thrones. He plays Gendry, who is Robert Baratheon's bastard son. He's pretty well known on the show. Anybody who watches Game of Thrones will know who he is.
Okay.
That's probably the main thing that he's known for. Like, he's done smaller things. He actually was on Skins as well, but that's where people will know him from, is Game of Thrones. He's British. I seem to cast a lot of British people.
Yeah, really.
I like British people. But I think he would have been a great Gale. In terms of physically, he totally could have pulled it off. He's a good-looking guy. Like, you'll have to Google him to check him out, but he is. He's like a good-looking guy. I definitely could see him as being like a Gale, kind of like a hunky sort of character. And I think he would have, I mean, it's hard for us to say, right? If he'd have like chemistry with any of these people, but I think they'd look good together. At least him and as Scott Ilario, and I would have liked to have seen him as Gale. He's also a very good actor. I think he definitely could have hit all the notes in terms of like who Gale is. I'm going to say it. I don't think Liam Hemsworth is a very good actor. I really don't.
I'm pretty sure this is the only thing I've seen him in. I didn't even know his name was Liam. I just knew he was a Hemsworth.
I don't feel he's a good actor. I feel he's a very one-note kind of actor.
Okay.
So I definitely feel that in terms of acting ability, I think Joe Dempsey is a far better actor, and I think he could have brought some depth to the character and perhaps hit different notes.
Yeah. Admittedly, Liam Hemsworth is the only one of the three leads that I wasn't too keen on. Like you, I was not really that interested in Gale in the books, but it's still written there on the page. Like, even though they weren't a couple, you could tell that there was, energy between them, and you're supposed to feel like there's a love triangle right from the first book. And I don't get that in the movie. The most we get is like the deadpan look on Liam Hemsworth's face when Peeta says he has a crush on her or something like that. There was just nothing there in the movie for me in terms of any relationship between Gale and Katniss.
Oh yeah, I feel you. I totally get what you're saying. Like, that was the biggest critique of mine was that I felt no chemistry between any of the three leads. Like, that's the thing. You're supposed to believe in the book this is like an intense love triangle. Like, that's one of the things that is interesting. I mean, there's so many things about the book that is interesting, but the love triangle is like a definite aspect to it, right?
Yeah.
And I was not getting that off of any of the leads.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that between Katniss and Peeta anyway, you get the sense that at least she is faking it throughout just because of the Hunger Games, right? Just to play the game and to have the people watch them and, root for a love story and blah, blah, blah. So I felt that they played that part well in the movie because they're not supposed to have that much chemistry, right? Like, I think they're trying to show the audience that, not the audience of the Hunger Games event in the movie, but us, the audience. They're trying to show it to us that, like, she's not really that into him, because it's not really until near the end of the first book that she's having some kind of inkling of feelings for Peeta.
Yeah, like, I feel that with her and Peeta, it really starts to heat up and catching fire, right? Like, that's where you really start to believe that she does have feelings for him.
Exactly.
It's like, for me, it never came to fruition. I never believed that chemistry. That's why, like, I just couldn't get into the movies.
Okay.
So the last character that I recast was Haymitch Abernathy, which was played by Woody Harrelson. Like, really? Why is Woody Harrelson in every movie? He's like Jude Law. Like, why is Woody Harrelson cast in every... He's not the only actor in Hollywood, but you'd think that he was.
Yeah.
Based on, like... And hey, I like Woody Harrelson. I think Woody Harrelson is a good actor, but why does he have to be in every single movie?
Yeah.
This shows a real lack of creativity with casting.
Yeah.
It does. I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't even think he was all that bad, but I kind of agree with you. Like, when he shows up there, I'm also thinking, why is he here? What is Woody Harrelson doing on screen?
Oh, yeah. Like, when I heard that he was cast as Haymitch, I was like, screw this. This movie is going down the toilet so fast. And you know what's funny? You know who was being heavily considered for that role? I don't know if you read this. John C. Reilly.
No way.
Yes, way.
I think he would have been better.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Nice.
See, I would have rather have seen John C. Reilly in the role than Woody Harrelson.
Me too. Yeah.
Totally. But here's a fun fact. Jack Black
No.
was rumored
Oh my God.
to have been considered for this. He was in the running for this role, Jack Black.
Oh, I wish so much that we could go back in time and make sure Jack Black got cast.
I kind of think that Jack Black could have done this role.
Yes. You know, we've recast a lot of his movies, but I stand by the fact that I really like him. I think he's a good actor. I think he's got charisma, and I think he would have done a great job as Haymitch.
And imagine, like, the faces that he would have pulled as Haymitch.
It would have been really
what an
different.
active face he would have had.
It would have been a very different Haymitch, and I want to see that Haymitch now. Holy cow.
Yeah. So with Woody Harrelson, I thought it was a creatively anemic choice. It was like, no. And like I said, he didn't do a bad job. Like, he was fine. Woody Harrelson is a good actor.
For sure.
Absolutely. There's no disputing that.
Yeah.
I didn't find that he was dark enough in the role.
Oh, really?
Because that's one thing that you really get out of the books is Haymitch is a dark character. Like, there's nothing fun about that guy. You know, he is like an alcoholic. He's abysmal. And he's not fun, like, in a hot mess sort of way. You know what I mean? Like, he's fun, he's fun. He's dark. He's got a lot of demons.
Yeah.
So maybe that was intentional. Like, maybe they wanted Woody Harrelson to bring some levity to the role. I don't know.
I don't know that Jack Black would have been darker.
So I don't know if that's why he was cast. I don't know what was going on.
Okay.
But to me, the Haymitch that Woody Harrelson portrays is like somebody who's kind of off the rails, but for the most part, he has his shit together. Whereas
that's true.
in the book, Haymitch does not have his shit together. Like, Katniss is constantly having to watch out for him, and I feel like they are the ones that have to keep him in check.
That's true. They really downplayed that. They left out a lot of parts from the book of that. Like, now that you're talking about it, it's jogging my memory from the books. And yeah, I think there were even times where, like, they would find him passed out and they'd have to take care of him, no?
Absolutely. So I felt that, like, in the movie, Haymitch definitely has a better sort of grasp on things.
Yeah. Here he was more like a lovable sot. Instead of, like, a deep, dark alcoholic.
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of, they went a different direction. So my pick for Haymitch was always, like, when I was reading the book, this was the first person who I pictured as Haymitch, Viggo Mortensen.
Oh.
Like, for me, that's who Haymitch is.
Oh, I like that.
100%. You know, Viggo Mortensen has a huge body of work. He's done tons of film.
And such a range, too.
Sorry?
He's got range.
Absolutely. And he has a name. I mean, people know who he is. But I think he would have made a great Haymitch. And I think that he would have definitely brought that darkness that you read in the book that imbues that character. Viggo Mortensen knows how to play dark.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. And I think he just would have been an amazing Haymitch. And in terms of, like, age appropriateness, I think he would have been fine for it, too. And I could just see him as, like, that really gruff character with all those demons and all that stuff going on, but still somebody who is lucid enough to guide them through, like, the games. I think he would have been amazing.
Yeah. I like that. I think that he would have been way better. And again, like, I'm with you, Woody Harrelson was fine, and he certainly is a good actor. But yeah, Viggo Mortensen would have been fantastic in that role.
Yeah, so that's me.
Awesome. Okay, my turn. Okay, I have a feeling that you're not going to agree with my casting choices.
Am I can't wait.
I don't think you're going to laugh. I don't know, but you're definitely not going to agree. So,
I don't have to agree. I'm not supposed to agree with you. We're supposed to fight.
Yeah, let's fight. Good thing we're not in the same room or this could get ugly. Okay, so for Katniss Everdeen.
I would start flipping, like, tables. No way!
How dare you? Okay, yeah. Katniss Everdeen. My first thought was of Ellen Page. I'm not sure in terms of physicality. I don't remember a lot of the descriptions of what characters looked like in the book. So I'm certainly not going to play into that. But Ellen Page can be a badass. And she's been in I want to say the X-Men franchise too, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I feel like she's kind of like a little dark and she can kind of play the loner. And I just think she would have brought something really interesting to that role. And she's only like maybe 2 or 3 years older than Jennifer Lawrence.
You know what, Lucia? I am not mad at that casting choice. In fact, I think that casting choice is a little bit brilliant.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited.
You know what? I didn't even think of her, and I don't know why, but yeah.
Yay.
Damn, why didn't they have her on the list?
I know. I think she would have been terrific. She's so good.
I think she would have been good.
Yeah.
She would have been a different Katniss altogether.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't remember a lot of the physicality of what was described as Katniss, but I remember a lot of her inner monologue and things like that. And I feel like Ellen Page would have been able to subtly display that a little better.
You know what? I think she would have captured the spirit of Katniss way better than Jennifer Lawrence. I know that the movie made a ton of money and that people loved her in that role, but I never felt that she really captured the essence of who Katniss was.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with, oh my god, I literally just forgot her name, with J-Law as Katniss. How could I forget her name? That's so weird. I didn't have a problem with her portrayal, but I also wasn't blown away by any means.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then the next one, PETA. I did like Josh Hutcherson, but I thought of Daniel Radcliffe, who...
Oh.
Yeah, he's also...
Harry Potter!
I know. He wasn't Harry Potter at that time anymore, I think. I feel like it was done by then.
Yeah.
He's also just a couple years older than Josh Hutcherson. So all of mine are like a little older, but not a lot. And they all kind of have young looking faces, so I feel like it would have been fine. But yeah, so I don't know. Well, Daniel Radcliffe is a great actor, so there's no question there of whether he could do it. And he is a babe. Like
Daniel Radcliffe is a babe.
Yeah. So I think he would have been just a great PETA. Okay, so like I said, I'm fine with most of the performances that are in the movie, but none of them were like, wow. And Daniel Radcliffe would have brought wow to PETA.
Oh, Daniel Radcliffe, like you said, there's no disputing Daniel Radcliffe is an amazing actor. I mean, he would have brought all sorts of wow to it.
Yeah.
Just, I don't think people would believe Daniel Radcliffe is PETA, because they'd be like, what's Harry Potter doing in the Hunger Games?
Yeah, that'd probably be too hard for a lot of people.
If Daniel Radcliffe hadn't been Harry Potter, he'd be a great PETA. I agree with you.
Yeah. No, it's funny, that is true, because it would be distracting probably at that time. Yeah. And then for Gale, I thought of Michael B. Jordan, who I think is another babe.
Can we call him Michael Bay Jordan?
I'm in.
Because he's such a babe.
Yeah.
Like Donald Glover. I love Donald Glover.
Oh, nice.
But now we're going off on a tangent.
Okay. And I mean, I don't have a lot to add to that either, because we know Michael B. Jordan is an amazing actor. He can do anything that we've seen, and he's hot. And I think he would have had an interesting... Well, first of all, I just think he would have brought more to the character than Hemsworth Baby did. And then I would have liked to have seen him and Ellen Page play off each other. I'd be curious to see how their chemistry would be.
Yeah, I don't know what that chemistry would look like.
I mean,
that'd be interesting.
In the end, like there's definitely supposed to be chemistry, but also she never is with Gale.
Yeah, did you throw him in there as the token black person?
No, I threw him in there because I think he's excellent.
Good. I felt like I had to ask you that because our listeners were wondering.
No, to be honest,
our three listeners were wondering.
No, to be honest, like there are some times where I'm like, ooh, maybe there's not enough diversity in my casting or whatever. But since there were only a few people, I wasn't really focusing on that, and I just once I thought of him, actually, this is going to sound weird. My first thought was Michael B. Jordan as Peeta and Daniel Radcliffe as Gale. And then the more I thought of it, I was like, no, I need to switch that around.
Yeah, that would have been hilarious.
Yeah. But it's funny that I landed on those two and I was still okay with just flipping it and I thought that was better. But anyway,
Yeah,
so
okay.
hey Mitch, I agree that the darkness was not there in this role. I don't know if it was Woody Harrelson's fault or if it's just how the screenwriters chose to do it, but I think Benicio del Toro would have brought some nice darkness there.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. That's an
And
interesting choice.
yeah, what really made me think of it, which probably won't make any sense, is his role in Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Yes.
I don't know. Picturing him in that role, I was like, yeah, I can see him as Hey Mitch.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, you know what? I mean, he's a great actor. I
yeah,
think he could do anything, right? He could certainly do it. Yeah, I
yeah,
think he would be an interesting Haymitch,
yeah,
and he would definitely be darker than like Woody Harrelson was.
yeah. And I actually had a second choice for Hey Mitch. Well, in a way, he was my first choice. He was the first one that popped into my head, and it's Philip Seymour Hoffman,
Oh,
who
well,
ended up
he's in it. Yeah.
yeah, he ended up playing a different character. I forget the name of the character. I really think he would have been a really great Haymitch.
Yeah, he could have done it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Cool. Yay!
Nice. See, there was no hysterics this
Yay! We
time.
didn't even fight.
Well, we almost fought.
Uh-oh.
I think people want to hear us fight.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so what's next?
I'll just mention that I read today that Jennifer Lawrence was paid $500,000 for this role. And I mean, like you said, she was already in a franchise. She had already been the lead in Winter's Bone, I think it was called. Even though I had never seen her, she certainly wasn't a household name, but yeah, she was known. And so 500,000, I don't know if that's a lot or a little because it's the first one and like you had mentioned before we started recording, they don't know how it's going to do. And so
Yeah.
it's hard to, I don't know how hard it is to set salaries for something like that. But for the second movie, after the first one was a big blow up blockbuster, she got paid $10 million for Catching Fire.
Yeah, that's a big pay hike.
Yeah.
10 million.
Yep. Especially for someone who were like, she didn't do that much. She was fine.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I didn't like her, but that doesn't mean anything, right?
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people loved her.
Yeah, that's a good fun fact. My fun fact that I found when I started doing a deep dive on this movie, Steven Soderbergh served as a second unit director for this movie.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Did
Isn't
you
that
see that?
crazy?
I thought that was really cool. I had no idea that he'd had any involvement with this movie whatsoever.
Yeah.
Don't you find it interesting? Like, I mean, you know his work, and I know that you're a fan of his work. Like, does it surprise you that he agreed to work on something like this?
Yes. And I don't know if maybe it was a timing thing, because if you've got Steven Soderbergh, why wouldn't you just have him be the director?
Yeah.
I thought that was really strange. I'm a fan of some of his work. I think he has some clunkers too.
Like, I like Steven Soderbergh, but he typically is involved with sort of, when you hear Steven Soderbergh, you think independent cinema. And so I was kind of surprised that he agreed to be involved
That's
in
interesting.
something of this magnitude.
I also read that Jennifer Lawrence was really apprehensive to take this role, even though she must have been auditioning, because she knew it was so big. Which is, I don't know, it's interesting, no?
I don't know. I mean, she was already attached to X-Men, so how scared was she? I don't know. I don't know if I believe that. Maybe
Okay.
she just said that. I'm really not a fan of J-Laws.
Okay.
I'm not. So, yeah, I don't know. But, I mean, this movie turned them all into multimillionaires and gave them huge careers.
Yeah, definitely.
So, this is the kind of movie that is a career maker for an actor, right?
Yeah.
I would have preferred if they had gone with unknowns for the lead roles, because these are are career-making roles.
Yeah.
And I think that they didn't need people who were popular. Maybe they needed it in terms of securing the budget for the movie, perhaps, right?
Even that I don't know, because the books had done so well that they probably didn't need that.
Like, that's the thing. When you have a book like this that is such a huge franchise, you've got a built-in audience.
Yeah, who are going to go probably regardless of who you cast.
Like I said, I mean, we discussed this before we started recording today. I got the sense that Gary Ross, who was the director, I got the sense that he was a control freak about this project. And interestingly, he was dropped from directing the second movie. He was supposed to direct Catching Fire, and then he was, because of creative differences.
Wow, I can hear the air quotes.
Irreconcilable differences when people get divorced. It's like giant air quotes around creative differences.
Yeah.
That just means they fired him. I don't know. Maybe he just really hit that whole control thing, started to get out of control. And they kicked him off the project, because when he was talking about the casting, like, I just got the sense that he was in the driver's seat. Like, I get that a director has input, of course, but...
Yeah, but also, what had Gary Ross done before this? That's what I forgot to look up.
I'll be honest, I didn't look at his filmography.
I've never heard of him, certainly.
I don't know.
So it's not like he's some giant name who can throw his weight around, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
it's surprising.
Apparently he did throw his weight around. So
which is why they dropped him.
Maybe that's why they fired him.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Well, I want to mention the ratings that I saw, because this was really interesting. Usually IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes have fairly similar ratings in terms of the critic ones. And for this movie, Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 84%. And IMDb gave it a 68.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why the difference?
I'm not sure. Well, Rotten Tomatoes, you're dealing with like 300 critics. And on IMDb, for whatever reason, it's only 49 critics.
Oh, okay.
So it's certainly just like a small cross-section. But yeah, like it's a pretty big difference there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I read that, like, for the most part, it was well received critically.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I didn't read any. There was only one review that I read that was, like, really, really bad, and it was by some guy in the New Republic, which is like some right-wing piece of garbage.
Okay.
that nobody reads.
I did read one critic complaining about the shaky camera, which that was a complaint of mine too, because like if you're talking about when action is happening and when they're running and this and that, then a shaky camera, fine, that's a choice you make. But it would be a quiet moment, nothing happening on screen, and the camera would be shaking out of control. Why?
Yeah, I don't know. You know what's weird is I clearly have no radar for shaky cam, because this is the second time that we've talked about this, where you notice shaky cam in a movie, and I'm like, what? Like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I never noticed shaky cam.
That's so interesting. Maybe you're like laser focused on one spot.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I'm shaky cam blind. Because I never see it, but...
Yeah, that did bother me. In a few scenes. It wasn't super noticeable throughout the whole movie, but there were some parts where it really felt out of place for me.
I think I was too focused on my hate for Josh Hutcherson.
I guess so.
As Peeta. That I completely missed the shaky cam.
Yeah. Okay, now it's time for our special segment. Hold me close, young Tony Danza. So this is the segment where we put Tony Danza into a role in this movie.
Here at Repodcasting, we love Tony Danza. He should be in every movie.
Oh my gosh, maybe we can get Tony Danza on the show.
Oh my god.
Please.
Tony Danza, he's another dream guest.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For our show. Oh, Tony Danza. Yeah.
Speaking of which...
So you go first. Where would you cast him?
Okay, I cast him as Caesar Flickerman, this Stanley Tucci role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he'd be a great host. He would have that fun vibe, and I think he would be delightful in that role.
I would cast Tony Danza as Cinna,
Oh, I like that.
who was Katniss's stylist, played by
Mm-hmm.
Lenny Kravitz. See, now we didn't talk about that, but now there was a creative casting choice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who would have ever thought that Lenny Kravitz would have ended up in this movie?
Yeah, who would have thought Lenny Kravitz would have ended up being like the breakout in this movie for me? Like he was really good. I watched it again this morning and I'm not even a huge Lenny Kravitz fan, but I was really enjoying him in this role.
Yeah, like there's a creative casting choice right there. Like that's perfect. I would cast Tony Danza as Cinna.
I love it.
I could totally see him as like Katniss's like stylist BFF. Yeah, girl.
Yes. Oh my god. Did you see the same movie? Because Lenny Kravitz was not exactly yeah, girl.
No, that was just me as Cinna.
Okay.
That's how, if I was playing Cinna, that's how I would play Cinna. Yeah, girl.
Nice. That would be very interesting.
But yes, I would cast Tony Danza as Cinna.
I love it. That's great.
That.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. So, we wanted to also just bring up something that Janet and I started doing. I think it was Janet's idea.
Yes.
We are giving each other movie challenges. Challenges just in the sense of we're giving a list of movies to watch and talk about later.
Yeah, so the main reason that I wanted to do it was because you and I seem to have watched such different types of films. Like there's so many movies that I have seen that I'll talk about and you're like, oh, I've never seen any of those movies, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so I find that we really gravitate towards different types of movies, and I thought it would be a really good exercise for us to sort of give each other movie challenges, and then that way too, like we're exposed to like different actors, different artists.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and it's been fun so far. My list for you keeps growing, and you seem to like the movies so far that I've given you. So.
I have. So I'll say what they are. So far, I have seen The Place Beyond the Pines, Half Nelson, Nightcrawler, Enemy. Am I missing something, or is that all so far?
No, that was it
Okay.
so far. Yeah, and so far I've watched, because Lucia loves Elvis movies.
Damn right.
So I saw Live a Little, Love a Little. That was the first Elvis movie, and that was like completely bonkers and out of this world. And I also watched Don't Think Twice, which was a movie it's on Netflix right now and stars what is it, Keegan Michael Key?
Yep, and Mike Birbiglia.
I really liked it. I thought it was good. I've only seen two. Why have you seen so many and I've only seen two?
You've seen Viva Las Vegas as well.
Oh, Viva Las Vegas. Yes, that's right.
How could you forget?
Another Elvis movie.
Yeah. So have the picks been? Well, I've only given you one really weird one. You'll get more weird ones later.
Which
don't
I
worry.
haven't. Yeah, it's a monkeys movie. What's it called?
It's called Head.
Head?
Yeah. I think in the marketing department, they really dropped the ball on this. And, like, they gave it a weird name. They gave it a weird advertising campaign. Like, the movie bombed huge. But over time, it's been appreciated more and more. It was a little bit of a cult hit in a way. And it actually even had, like, a Criterion Collection release now.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize that was the name of it. I'm going to watch it on YouTube. But thanks for giving me a movie that bombed. Thanks, Lucia.
That doesn't mean it's bad.
To watch it. I'm thrilled to watch it now. I can't wait.
Hey, it's good.
I think that one's going to be challenging for me. But, like, that's also the idea of this movie challenge is, like, for us to sort of get out of the box and, like, try different movie genres and that sort of thing.
Exactly. Speaking of which, my next movie is going to be Dear Frankie, which I am not looking forward to at all. No, I do not like Gerard Butler, but we'll see. Hopefully I can get past him.
Listen, you're going to see Dear Frankie, and you're gonna like Gerard Butler. And here's the thing, I don't like Gerard Butler at all. I hate seeing what has happened to Gerard Butler's career, how it's evolved into like this complete shit show. But when I watched that movie, and it is an older movie, I would say it's probably about 15 years old, that movie, but it is good. And when you watch it, you're going to be like, OMG, what happened to Gerard Butler's career?
Wow.
It started off, like, you're going to see a completely different side of him, and I'm so excited for you to watch it, because I can't wait to hear what you think of that movie.
Okay, awesome. We'll check back in the next episode.
Yes. I'm sure people can't wait to hear.
Can't wait to hear what you thought of Head and what I thought of Dear Frankie. Awesome. Okay, well, I do want to say thank you for doing the movie challenge, because I've been wanting to do something like that. I mean, the only thing that would be better is if we could watch these movies together.
Yeah,
but
I know, but geographically it's impossible.
Right.
But, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Janet, for joining me on the phone.
Thank you.
And I'm going to reveal our next movie, which even Janet doesn't know yet what I've picked.
I'm so nervous.
So next month, we will be recasting The Matrix.
Oh my god. I've never watched The Matrix.
Oh, really?
This is actually really exciting because I have never, and I'm probably like one of the only people on the planet Earth who has not seen that movie.
It's on Netflix, so it's easy enough to access. And hopefully everyone else will watch it and tune in next month.
Cool.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thanks.